This is Amy, and you're listening to the Talkin' Appalachian podcast.
Freight train, run so fast. Freight train, run so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on.
That's my son Landon performing Freight Train by Elizabeth Cotton on vocals and acoustic guitar. This has been my podcast's theme song since I started it 4 years ago, and he's always been the one to play it, but I've never heard him sing it until this past week, and I was so blown away, and I asked him if I could share it on the podcast, and he said, yeah, just don't make me listen to myself. So, of course, I'm a proud mother, but I just love his voice. This episode is going to give you reasons why people have such strong reactions to discussions about an accent. And when I say strong reactions, these can be very positive, nostalgia, memory-evoking responses. I remember my grandmother saying this, or we grew up saying this word. I love those stories. Or it can be something else that prompts a bigger discussion, like, well, I think you're wrong about this because that wasn't my experience. We didn't say that word. I'll give you an example. I was on a thread just recently where people were debating the pronunciation of crick and creek. Now, crick is the correct pronunciation if you're in the north or the northwest or the North Midland of Appalachia, but not just Appalachia, New England. People say it out west, and then a few people say it in the south. Creek is more widely pronounced in the Midland to Southern areas of the Appalachians. But both are correct, depending on where you are. But people will debate that. The people who grew up saying crick will say the creekers are wrong, and the people who grew up saying creek will say the crickers are wrong. So that's what I want to talk about is why do people have, and here's another example, Appalachia. One vowel can cause people to get into the equivalent of an online fistfight. Literally. So this is something that sociolinguists and linguists and communication scholars have studied for a really long time. And my reactions tend to be stronger when I see things being said online that I know are not factual. Let's talk about it. Number one, people hear judgments about intelligence and education when they hear a discussion of language. We know from research that people make snap judgments based on accents, whether somebody sounds educated or trustworthy, competent, friendly, attractive. People make snap judgments about how much money you make. I've done these studies myself, and so I know that that's the case. In the study that I did, the respondents ranked female Appalachian speakers the lowest of everybody in terms of guessing about those things, trustworthiness and wealth and education. But why is the question? Why? And a lot of that has to do with a reason that comes up later on, what we're socialized to believe about dialect. Number two, accent is part of our identity. You can change your clothes. You can change your hairstyle overnight. You can change your eye color with contacts. Your accent, though, develops over years and years with your family and your community and your friends. It's not as easily changed. It doesn't mean people don't do it. They do for lots of reasons. But a lot of the reason why they change is because they don't want to be associated with the stereotype. And then people keep it because they want to be connected to their parents, their grandparents, or their sense of belonging. And so any kind of perceived criticism sounds like you're criticizing their people. Number three, language has been used in the past to exclude people. Throughout history, dialects have been used to justify discrimination in schools, in employment, housing, even politics. I'm thinking of 2 episodes right off the bat that you could listen to about this. One is Talkin' Cherokee. It's about the Cherokee people and their fight to preserve the Cherokee language. It comes from a documentary called We Will Speak that was co-directed by Michael McDermott. And I did an interview with Michael, and he gave me clips from the documentary to play throughout the podcast. So this is one of the podcast episodes that I'm most proud of. It took a lot of work, but it is so powerful in terms of what people in North Carolina and Oklahoma are doing to preserve a language that was almost completely erased.
It's the centerpiece of our identity. Everything that makes us Cherokee happens in the language as it should be. If we lose our language, then who are we?
It's like looking at a storm coming, black clouds coming. You can't outrun it. It's going to pass you. That's what's going to happen to the Cherokee language. Once we're gone, it's going to pass.
The second episode I'm thinking about is with director Ashley York about another documentary called Hillbilly. And she cites these studies and shows these clips of the way that politicians have been judged because of the way that they sounded. So speakers of Appalachian Englishes and African American Englishes and Southern Englishes and lots of other immigrant varieties, they have these painful lived experiences. And so they may react strongly because of those experiences. Number 4, people mistake different for wrong. We were taught, about 99% of us were taught that there's one correct English that you speak and one correct English that you write. That's known as standard English. In linguistics, we call it mainstream or American broadcast English. We don't call it right. We don't call it correct. We say that's the power dialect. That's the one we teach in schools. That's the one that we have determined is most clear and available for communicating with somebody no matter where you're from, no matter what your background. We tend to, and this also comes from research, we tend to categorize everything and we tend to rank everything. And so we rank that dialect as the best dialect. And everything else that's different is categorized as wrong or incorrect. Linguists know every dialect has grammar, every dialect has pronunciation rules. The problem comes up when people equate standard English or mainstream American English with the good English. It is a power English, but it's not better than or more correct than vernacular English. And people are going to argue with me about this, and it's a paradigm shift. You have to really train your brain to think differently than what you were taught. It's not better than, it's different from. And when I talk about examples of my voice place here in Southwest Virginia, far Southwest Virginia, I'm not talking about Roanoke, I'm talking about Lee County, those surrounding counties on the Kentucky border, I'm not saying mine's better than anyone else's in Appalachia. There are hundreds and they're so different. And so that's what we have to train our brains, especially teachers. I'm talking to you, teachers. Try not to categorize, especially if you have vernacular speakers coming into your classroom, people who are bringing home dialects into your classroom. Try not to categorize them as correct or incorrect, good or bad. It's about audience and purpose. Who are you talking to? What's the occasion? And what are their expectations? What's going to make you the most clear? It's called code switching, not good or bad. And there's a whole other podcast episode about that too. Number 5, accent is one of the few social markers that people can't easily hide. So somebody may not disclose their religion or politics. You can hide that. But the minute you open your mouth and people hear the way that you're speaking, they may make assumptions. And that makes people especially vulnerable to stereotyping. And for that reason, some people don't want to be associated with it at all. Number 6, people feel a powerful ownership over their language. Everybody uses language every day, and everybody feels qualified to have opinions about it. And that's fine. It's a free country. But very few people are going to argue with a physicist about quantum mechanics, right? But almost everybody has strong opinions about what is correct in terms of pronunciation and grammar and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. I mean, think about that vowel in Appalachia. There are a few people in the region who are raised in a different part of the region who only ever hear Appalachia. And their majority are raised to hear Appalachia. The difference is when someone who is perceived to be outside the region says Appalachia, that's, I think, where people get mostly irritated. And Appalachia is just one example. There are a lot of state names and place names that people feel this very strong ownership about. because it's theirs, right? They believe it's theirs, it's part of their identity, and they want to protect it and they want to defend it. And they see that as somehow our brains see that as a threat if someone's saying it differently and they insist on saying it differently. So many of you have joined the Talkin' Appalachian community on Patreon, and I just want to welcome you. If you're thinking of subscribing to get bonus episodes, writing, my travelogues for places and spaces I visit throughout Appalachia, or anything else I only share with subscribers, then go on over to patreon.com/Talkin' Appalachian Podcast. And if you choose to become a paid subscriber, that will unlock bonus episodes with literary luminaries like Barbara Kingsolver, Homer Hickam, and Jeanette Walls, my interview with an Appalachian Holocaust survivor, and some absolutely true ghost tales from my own family's vault. You'll also have early access to episodes like this one before they're published. Talkin' Appalachian Podcast on Patreon. Number 7, media stereotypes reinforce bias. Movies and television frequently use accent as a way to develop a character. And before movies and television, books did that. Local color writers. I've talked about that in my episode about dialect. Color writers did this in the 1800s and early 1900s before Appalachian literature became its own category, and writers began to reshape that story, reshape the way that voice was used. So in movies and TV, you might still find that, villains have foreign accents. Rural characters may be portrayed as uneducated or dumb. British accents are often associated with intelligence or sophistication. These repeated portrayals of these characters cause people to shape subconscious attitudes about people and about how people sound. So if you're biased against a dialect or an accent, then you're biased against the people who speak it. It's that simple. And Appalachian Englishes make us especially sensitive because of the long history that the region has with this stereotype of isolation and being backward. And a lot of the reason those stereotypes were used against us is because we had a lot of resources that outside companies wanted. And if you want something without giving back, then you exploit. You're going to have opposite reactions to discussions of dialect. You're going to have people who are really proud of it. They see themselves as an expert on it because they speak a version of the dialect and they see any opportunity to discuss it and celebrate it. And then you're going to have the other folks who have tried to distance themselves from it, and they're going to tell you you're wrong. Really what it comes down to is it reminds them of being discriminated against, or it makes them feel shamed. And that makes me sad. So it's helpful to, whenever a discussion comes up, when you see something come up, people say, this is, how do you pronounce this word? Or this is the way a word should be pronounced, or this is how we say it. It's helpful to frame it like this. If somebody's talking about pronouncing the word wash instead of wash, or creek instead of crick, right? It's helpful to say that happens quite a bit throughout Appalachia, but not everybody says it that way. And so then it becomes a discussion about how did it first emerge, or why are people still using it? Why are older generations still using it? I am really, as a researcher, more about the why than the what. And I think any kind of discussion about accent or dialect invites us to think about that why. Why are we reacting the way that we're reacting? What do people assume about me? And does that have anything to do with why I'm reacting? The one thing that makes me react the strongest is when I see misinformation being spread. I know somebody's using AI to write this long epic post about language, and some of it's not true. Or they're using slang to describe dialect, and it's not the same thing. Those kinds of things. And, you have to pick your battles. But the whole point of the podcast and the book and any social media post I make related to this is education. That's really what it is. It's not for clicks or likes or clickbait or to start this debate or to start an argument. It really is just to educate people. But I think that every story we tell about voice place is an act of preservation. And I think that's always, always something that is important. And it doesn't have to be warm and fuzzy. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be reminiscing about positive things all the time. I think our stories about dialect prejudice are just as important. I invite your voice play stories. I want to hear about them. I think that every story we tell is valuable and priceless. I haven't done a paid Patreon shout out in a while, so I want to thank the following people who have subscribed on Patreon recently. Thank you to Beth C., Tracy S., and Heath. I really appreciate your support of the podcast, and I hope you'll enjoy those bonus episodes and free content. Remember to keep talking Appalachian, or talking about talking Appalachian.
Way down on old Chestnut Street, so I can hear